This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 5 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network, presented by Equestrian Life, exclusive coverage of the world of dressage. We would like to thank our sponsors, Equestrian Life. They can be found at equestrianlife.com, and Kentucky Performance Products. They can be found at kppusa.com. This is Chris Stafford in Lexington, Kentucky.
And I'm Heather Blitz in Esbjerg, Denmark, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show presented by Equestrian Life.
Well, hi there, Heather. Before we go any further with the show this week, we just want to mention that we've had some sound problems and we are dealing with those. And I think it's probably because you're in Europe and on a very different connection and we have different audio devices. But we just want to mention that we are aware of the problem and the variable quality that we've had. It doesn't seem to have stopped people joining us, though, because we've got already an amazing following. And so we want to thank the audience that we've attracted so far and reassure you that we will be addressing those sound problems for the future. So what have we got on the show this week, Heather?
Well, we have an exciting report from Gladstone competition, the National Intermediate and Grand Prix Championships from the United States. And Debbie McDonald telling us about the rides and the performances there. So we'll hear from her later. And we have a bit of news that we'll be hearing about from around the world.
Oh, terrific. And how are things with you over in Denmark? Is it getting warmed up a little bit there?
It is, finally. We're seeing summer. It's hard for you, especially in the southern states of the U.S., to imagine that we're just now getting up into the 70s, but it's quite nice and very sunny. And what about you in Lexington there?
Oh, it's starting to get really humid now. You know, now is the time to sort of get up pre-dawn and do all the exercise you need to do. I know I go out earlier with my dogs and, get my exercising done. And so you can be indoors in the air conditioning for the most part because it starts to get really, really hot, So, we know we've got this for a couple of months, but that's it. We have ice storms in the winter and a bit of humidity in the summer. But, apart from that, it's a great place to live.
Well, that's right. It's a beautiful state and you just have to take the good with the bad and appreciate the good more.
Totally. Absolutely. So have you been doing anything for fun this past week, or has it just been work?
No, I've just been really kind of relaxed and actually reading a little bit more, just leisure reading, and that's been kind of nice to relax.
Any recommendations there while you're there?
Well, an author that I find really entertaining, John Krakauer. He's written 3, Into Thin Air and Into the Wild. And Under the Banner of Heaven. I just read that one, and I like him as an author. He kind of presents the facts. He's somewhat of a historian and doesn't really put his opinion into it a whole lot, which I appreciate. And he's got great stories, so I like those books.
Good. Well, I'll keep that in mind. I got a new iPhone this past weekend, which is my new toy, and I need to download some new audio books, so maybe I can get those titles off you sometime.
Sure. How fun. Yeah, I can't wait to get one of those myself.
All right. Well, let's move on to the news of the week, Heather. We've got a few pieces of news there, and the first comes out of England, and it's very interesting. This indicates a trend, the consultation that we are seeing both in dressage and in eventing and other sports now. British Dressage is they're seeking feedback from their members on proposed rule changes, according to their rules and fixtures director Sarah Green, and she mentions that in the past announced changes, and now they're looking at proposing the idea of consultation, and I think it's to an interesting change in the culture there, Heather, that that riders and the organising bodies are actually consulting more. And do you have any?
I wonder. Well, are they? I wonder if they're having if with just the general riders who are members of their organization, or if they have some kind of committee set up for consultation. I wonder what the details are on that. I think it's a great idea that it's made by a small group, but I kind of think the bigger the group, it can get a little, more time consuming to get everyone's opinion heard, but it's sort of a better idea.
Well, the example that they cite, apparently, that the suggestions include a change in the qualification procedure for regional championships and a new championship class to give top riders an opportunity to ride their young horses. Currently, to be eligible for a regional championship in England, a novice rider must win 2 qualifiers, and British Dressage is proposing a league system rewarding consistent partnerships. Well, the response that they have to that proposal it's actually been quite interesting. On the one side, there's a Grand Prix rider who's unconvinced and thinks that you ought to have to win twice, and that they kept coming a second year but could have tried again. And on the other hand, another rider thinks it's frustrating when good horses are pipped and others are qualified when there is less competition. And this speaks, obviously, there are different opinions to deal with. So how do you get a consensus when you're making rule changes?
Yeah, well, that's a question and a challenge, I think, globally, whether it's about qualifying procedures or, rules whatsoever. And to get everyone's opinion heard can just be such a time-consuming thing. And, I have a feeling if they keep listening to all the riders, Anna Ross Davies had that come in, and Amy Stovold, for instance, if the riders really get involved and they make a really big effort, I think, to make their opinions heard to the committees who are making the rules, I think that's really important. And a lot of riders might have opinions or ideas, but a lot of people don't tend to step up and say it. And I think it's important that they do, and I'm glad they're being listened to. And they'll just have to see, what sort of agreements they come up with.
Well, I think it's a very interesting trend. We're seeing at national level in inventing and dressage, but we're also seeing at the FEI level too. So I think we might be just seeing a shift in the culture here, and how riders, competitors are involved in the total process for the sports administration. So, and I know you are already on a committee, aren't you, at the USEF High Performance?
Yeah, I'm an eligible athlete that helps advise the High Performance Committee for the USEF, and it's been a really great experience so far, and learning a lot. It's just my first few months on the committee, but I'm on it for 4 years, so we'll see what happens over those years. But I'm glad to be a part of it for sure.
Well, our other item of news comes out of Switzerland, and that involves Salieri, the ride of Sylvia Ickle, who's been on the Swiss team for so many years now, Heather. And apparently, Salieri's had an injury. He recently fooled around a little too much, was bucking and bubbly, and injured himself. So he's going to be out for the European Championships and for, of course, Aachen coming up next week. But importantly, for the European Championships, which take place in England in a couple of months' time. That's very disappointing for Ickle again. She's been the stalwart of the Swiss team now for so long, hasn't she?
Yes, she has. It's got to be disappointing for her, but she's always been one to make the decisions really based on her horse's best interest, and really, really admire her for that a lot. So feel too bad for her, but I'm really glad for her horse that he's owned by such a responsible horsewoman, and she's saving him so he can come out for the next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good luck to her, and then of course we had Rotterdam this past week, and there was a bit of an upset there with Edward Gold dethroning Anki with Salinero.
Yeah, she has some real competition now, doesn't she?
Yeah, it really is interesting how the shift now, there, as you say, there is more competition, and I think Edward got an 84, which is usually where you see Salinero. So competition's healthy. That's what the sport's all about.
That's right, and it keeps the crowds coming back too. It's Anki's done an amazing job with Salinero. She always does a Grand Prix that is definitely worth watching, and it's I have to say it's fun to see that someone can come in and really challenge her. I think it's good for audiences for the public to want to come and see the competitions even more now, because it's a little less certain that we'll be really at the top, and now she's got to work for it a bit harder. Ed Gall has done such an amazing job with that stallion, and just so exciting about his future. He's just 9 years old. It's just the beginning for him. They get to be their best at 12, 13 years old, and this one's just 9. And it's like he's being pretty cautious with, not just wanting to use him up too soon. He's also very concerned about keeping the horse happy and developing, so he has a lot of years ahead of him. So it's just a huge, exciting future for Ed Gall and Totus. It's fantastic, that horse.
Well, out of that, the Dutch team were able to name their team for Aachen next week. That's going to be Marlies, Van Balen, Oyai, and Kigali. Do you spell it Oyai?
Yeah.
Oyai? Okay. And
I don't know about the first one. Kigali.
Kigali's easy enough, isn't it? But Oyai, I think it might be Ojay. Apologies to Marlies if we mispronounced that. Anki, of course, with Salinero, and then Sander Marinissen with Merdville. Do we pronounce it Merdville?
I think so.
Okay, and then Hans-Peter Minderhood with the mare Nadine. A strong team there for Aachen. Always a strong team, though. It's always going to be a ding-dong between the Dutch and the Germans these days. Any observations about that team? Who do you think is going to come out top in Aachen?
Well, certainly Anki had a great chance with Salinero. Sander and his horse are a great pair. I love that to watch them myself. It's just such a relaxed, nice picture, and they fit so well together. Personalities and physical type, everything. Hans-Peter and Nadine, I could watch them all day long. Very elegant mare. Love them. And Marlies and Kigali are always a strong, consistent pair. So, it's hard to say. I would probably predict that Salinero would be Salinero, Nadine, Modeville, and Kigali. Kigali be my estimate, my guess of how it might come within their own team, what the order might be. But I'm looking forward to it. There's a chance I might be able to get down to Aachen next week and watch that, so I might be able to give you a sort of a play-by-play of how it went.
Well, I hope so too. I was going to ask you, you're still planning to get down there, are you?
Yeah, that's my plan so far. Unless anything happens, change my plans, I'll be there.
Terrific. Well, you'll have to connect with Klaartje van Andel, and I think two of you should be able to have a good conversation after that. We'll have you both talking about Aachen when you get back the following week.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, we're coming now to your Paragon's Diary.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a short one this week. Paragon has been working so hard and really advancing quite a bit that this week coordinated quite well together with the beautiful weather we're starting to have. We've just been taking it a bit easy, going out for hacking, practicing a little over the bridges and up and down hills. We have a big hill. And I think later this week we might be going out to the beach, playing around in the waves a little too. So he's been taking it quite easy. He deserves it. He needs some time to rest, but still have a little fun. So that's what he's been up to this week.
All right. Well, thanks, Heather. Well, we're going to be taking a short break now for a commercial, and when we come back, we'll be talking to Debbie McDonald.
It is fantastic to have our friends at Equestrian Life as the title sponsors for the Dressage Radio Show. If you have not been to Equestrian Life yet, you need to go. In addition to being the official social community of the Horse Radio Network, it is one of the fastest growing horse communities on the internet. It is truly the Facebook for horse people. Keep track of your friends and their horses, the shows they were at, and how they did, all with Equestrian Life's easy-to-use interface. This community is designed by horse people for horse people and is filled with educational and entertaining video and audio all about our horses. Ride on over to Equestrian Life today, sign up for free, and tell all of your friends. If you love horses, Equestrian Life is the place to be at equestrianlife.com.
All right, well, we're back and to hear from our first and only guest on the show this week, Debbie McDonald. Tell us what she's been up to, Heather.
Well, Debbie's been up in New Jersey, in Gladstone, New Jersey, this past weekend, helping out Adrienne Lyle, her rider, on course, another one, schooling her and getting her ready for the Grand Prix championships that have been held there last weekend, and she is going to give us a report on how it went.
Well, Debbie, thanks so much for joining us today. I know you're probably still drying off from Gladstone last week.
I sure am. It was definitely more rain than I've seen fall in a long time.
And of course, you don't have footing up there at Gladstone to stand that at deluge, do you?
No, I mean, I have to give it credit. It held up a heck of a lot longer than I thought it was going to. It really did. And I'd have to say, even up to Sunday when they rode that the young rider class that was supposed to be right before the Grand Prix, there was a couple little slippy spots. It was just that it was getting a little bit too deep in areas, and that's what was the real decision then.
Of course, we heard that the special had to be cancelled. There was a lot of, shuffling of the schedule. How did the competitions that were held? How did they go? Give us a review of it all, Debbie.
Well, we were supposed to start on Thursday, and it rained. I mean, it had rained and rained and rained. And they had held a couple classes, a young rider class, and I believe the Prix St. George. And then we were supposed to have the Grand Prix. And the more it went on, and the more we watched the drag, which was basically it's a scraping blade, is what it was going in there and moving that muck around. A few of us got together and decided that they had an off day anyway for us, and why didn't we try to just cancel the rest of the day and hope for better, weather, or at least a chance for the ring to firm up again. So it was a unanimous decision. They took it to, I guess, the higher beings, whoever that was, and the judges all in agreement. And we pretty much scratched Thursday, which meant Friday, of course, we had the show. Doing that, when we did scratch Thursday, they decided that because the public, and they had announced so much about the freestyles being on Saturday, that they could not change the freestyles to Sunday. So it would be off schedule. It would be the Grand Prix, the freestyle, and then the Grand Prix special.
I was going to ask you, Debbie, why that was in that order, since you don't really see it that way.
And that was mainly for the public, and the fact that they were holding those later in the afternoon into the early evening, and they wanted as much, public that could come to that as possible. So with that, of course, it never stopped raining. So when it came to Friday, when we had the show, I must say that they managed with the rain. I guess it was either coming down so hard, or at some point, I mean, I had to give Patrick a lot of it for keeping the ring going as well as he did. And we just kept, scraping the muck basically off the top, and would continue on. And the Grand Prix, actually, the very unfortunate thing about the whole situation, it was nobody complained about having to ride in the weather. It was just that you had no warm-up ring to ride in that was of the same footing. So the up rings that they have as warm-up rings were definitely not safe enough. They were getting too deep. So you're back into that indoor the footing's been there for probably 50 years, and everybody's warming up in the indoor in that dry footing and then going out into the slot. And most horses that were affected were the West Coast horses, because they really have never done much of that kind of slot before. Mm-hmm. So that was an unfortunate situation. Had you been able to warm up in the same footing, it might, things might have ended up a little differently. But it's hard to say. Who knows for sure. Anyway, so they got through with the Grand Prix, and again, the ring was drug and scraped and it continued to rain. I think we had a little bit of a nicer day. For the most part, Friday was a nicer day. It did sort of back off. It was the nicest day of all of the days that we had there. And, of course, then it came to Saturday, and again, it was raining, and they held the classes, and again, unfortunate that they didn't start the classes at like 7 o'clock. They chose to start them at 9, and it basically didn't start raining until, I would say, 9. So we could have had a good couple hours of competition, but again, because of the situation, we couldn't move the Grand Prix up. So the Grand Prix ended up going in the freestyle in rain and muck, as well as the Prix St. George I-1. Actually, I think they lucked it because they got done. I think the end of their class, it started to rain. But for the most part, those horses ended up going in not too much rain. They happened to luck out on the forecast. The kids were in terrible weather as well. But this was such a, just a shame that it just wouldn't back off at all. So basically it came to Sunday morning, and a lot of the riders went out and walked around it and in their muck boots. And, it did feel quite firm, I have to say. But then they put the young riders in on it. And after they went, coming down center line where you do your special, like the pirouette, Bontempi's pirouette, X was getting a little boggy. The ends, both ends, A and C on the rail, were getting very sloppy and boggy. And those are, again, places where transitions are to passage. Along the wall, all rail was just getting a little bit sucky. And so a couple of the riders just went in just to say that they were just going to scratch, because they really felt that, they didn't want to stop the show for everybody, but some of us felt that it wasn't worth it, especially if you want to go to Europe later. It just wasn't worth the risk.
Well, I noticed that the dressage marker at C has got redesigned and spelled SEA, Debbie.
Well,
but tell us about the competition. Obviously the footing would have influenced a lot of people, and the Grand Prix went to Tip Top with Leslie Morse. Talk us through the rides there, Debbie, and what you saw.
Well, definitely, the first day, Leslie won it hands down. I mean, she really went for it. The horse looked great. The best I've seen him look in a long time. He was really, really super. Great passage, amazing changes. And Pierre, with Lucky Tiger, put in a very, very, very good ride. And I think, he definitely deserved to be second that day. No doubt. And again, a lot of people that probably you would have thought would be more in the forefront, their horses did struggle with the footing. I mean, either they'd have to, like for instance, the half passes, the steep half passes, like Wizard that Adrian was riding, absolutely would not go sideways in the second half pass because there was just shiny puddles the whole way he'd have to step in. So, I mean, it was just in situations like that throughout all the rides that just kind of made the competition a little bit anticlimactic. You know what I mean? It certainly wasn't what I think everybody came to see or expected to have when they got there with their horses.
It can really just put a damper on the whole mood of everything. You just feel a sense of miserableness the whole time you're getting poured on.
Well, that's it. I mean, by Sunday, literally, we all said, okay, we are really so done with this. Let's just go home and forget it.
The good thing, though, it seems like, is that it wasn't an even playing field for everybody. It didn't rain for the second half of the class, where the first half may have gotten to ride in beautiful weather. So at least it sort of was the same challenge for all the riders, and that's maybe one good thing you can say about how it went.
Well, yeah. I mean, it seems to be, though, I have to say, poor Shelley Francis, every time I've ever been to Gladstone, she's always seems to be in there when the skies decide to really open up. And it was no different at this show either.
Oh.
And she's such a good sport, you know. She just kind of looks up at the sky and says, why me? But, you know, there were a couple riders that definitely had a little harder rain than others. But you're absolutely correct in the fact that it was just plain miserable for everyone.
Mm.
So as far as that goes, the Grand Prix, as it was pegged, I can't remember who was third.
It was Mike Berson on Olympus.
Oh, and that was a very interesting ride. That horse was really, really good. Really
so,
good.
Debbie, that's a new one for him. How old is that horse?
I'm going to say he's 12 or around 12. Apparently the horse was ridden in Europe and had some experience, but this is the first time this year is the first year that he's brought him out. And a very interesting horse with a lot of talent. And so, yeah, he was third and had a very good ride as well.
And what about Michael's other horse, Neruda?
He didn't come, and apparently, from what I understand, there was he had a little bit of a bacterial infection going on, so he was on antibiotics and stuff, and he couldn't bring him, so he never showed.
And then what about Sharon McCusker and her horse, Julie Sharif?
Yeah, that horse was interesting. I saw that horse. I did him in a clinic, I think about a year and a half ago, and I told her, I mean, I even asked her then if he was for sale. He's a very cute horse, really, very green in the Grand Prix still, but really an honest citizen, I mean, really goes in there, tries his hardest, and even under the conditions, he put in a pretty darn decent test, I have to say.
Sounds like he must be by May Sharif. Is that right? Is it a Danish horse?
Yeah.
So, and then Reese Koffler was coming in 5th. So that's her first time at Gladstone. I bet she's really excited about her placing.
Exactly. And it was fun to see a couple young new faces in there. She did quite well. Again, a very nice, experienced horse that kind of just plugged right along through it, and she did a lovely job presenting it, and so was for sure in that situation and under those conditions did a beautiful job.
Oh, we're really proud of her for that and really happy for her. And then the next one coming in is a horse you know quite well, Felix.
Felix. Well, he was actually better than I thought he was going to be in Lop. Again, like I said to Adrian, I guess we're going to find out if we have, mudders or not. I mean, I've never shown him in any kind of conditions like that. And he handled that pretty well. He had a couple mistakes, but overall showed some really brilliant moments in there. So we were really happy with that, for sure.
And then Adrian rides a second horse named Wizard, who she placed first in the Cur.
Yeah, he was really tough in the Grand Prix. He did not. He's a real power horse. He's very strong. Really a very exciting horse to watch because he is really powerful. Does a really nice passage and piaffe, but again, he just didn't want to have anything so behind the leg in the water. She had a hell of a time just getting it through, So, but then next day for the freestyle in the morning, she decided that she was going to go out and play in the mud in the upper ring, and she found a mud puddle that had good footing underneath, and then took about 15 minutes to get him in it, but then she was entering and trotting through it afterwards. So that appeared to pay off very well for her the next day.
Well, it sounds as if you all started with dressage horses and came away from Gladstone with eventers.
Exactly. That's exactly what we did. In fact, a really fun story. I don't know if anybody sent any pictures of the fish that was put in the arena.
I've seen those on Charles Mann, the photographer, has some, and Susan Stickle on Facebook with some very funny pictures.
Yeah, and that was part of the cross-country course in Hong Kong.
Oh, yes.
And it showed up apparently on the pallet with some horses, and they've had it there at Gladstone. So that was quite funny that it ended up, and Brian O'Connor kept saying that was our rain meter.
So tell us about the Kirby. There was just a little shift there, a very marginal shift at the top of the leaderboard. How did that look to you, Debbie?
Well, I have to say that Adrian, I think they both had a few little mistakes, but then they ended up showing it. Like in the beginning, Adrian had she starts off with one tempi down the center line, and she had a couple bobbles in the beginning, and then she ended up showing it really well the whole rest of the way. But, like that. But music, I have to say, we took a lot of crap putting it together, but it is, it's country western themed, and it's very well done. Terry Gallo did it, and the crowd absolutely went crazy over it. Couldn't help enjoy it. There's parts where you laugh and smile and giggle. There's one scene at the end, one little part at the end when she's coming center line where it says "Save a horse and ride a cowboy."
Oh, lovely! Yes.
So it was quite good music. She could not have missed a beat on it. For me, it was. For me, even though she's my student, for me, she was the winner. No doubt about it.
And Tip Top, Leslie had changed the music with him. What was that now? Chance to see it yet, Debbie? So tell us what that sounded like.
Well, I think I would be interested to see how the judges took it. I think for me, it's a little bit too broken up between canter, trot, pirouette, piaffe. It's a little too busy, I think. But, she did score well enough on it. I think that it definitely needs a little polishing, probably to go to Europe. But, first looks really good. And
what kind of music, Debbie?
I'm trying to remember. It's, oh, God.
Well, we'll have to get Leslie on because I know she's heading to Europe with Tip Top now, isn't she? She's going to pick up with Kara.
And she is, and it is new music. And I know it's not that it's bad music. I think it just needs to be either cut a little differently. To me, the cuts sounded a little harsh. And I think I really personally loved her other music. I think it fit them very well.
Yes, it really did. It was fabulous.
I know that her intentions were to try to make the freestyle more difficult, but I kind of think that's Tip Top's music, to be honest, and I would love to see her just try to keep the same kind of music, change maybe a little bit of it, and make it a little more difficult because it fit him so well.
Yeah. I think it's always a challenge to mix, where's the fine line between doing something that is going to get you some technical points, but then takes away from the flow or sometimes the simpleness that can make them really nice.
And that's exactly right. I mean, that's what I thought it lacked was some flow, that it just was a little too broken up to kind of understand. Like you'd start to get into a movement and then it would abruptly,
Well, tell us a little bit about, sorry, I finished on that?
No, go ahead.
Well, tell us a little bit about Lauren Samus and Sagacious, who she was last year the intermediate champion at Gladstone? Or no, that was in California. And then went on to the Pan Ams for us.
Right.
So how were they in the Grand Prix and in the freestyle here where she was third?
Yes. I think, again, she had some issues with the footing as well in the Grand Prix. I think, I didn't get a chance to actually talk to her or see that performance because I was doing Adrian. But from what I heard from everyone else, they just said that there was just some, the horse wasn't really like in front of her leg and kind of a little bit short in the neck and backed off. But I think
really got to that one.
I think that it really was footing related. Because the next day she went out there in the mud, I think along with Adrian, and got the horses kind of more into that mode of getting splashed on, and the horse looked quite good in the freestyle.
That's good to know. So then Michael Barrison on Olympus, who was he second on third on the Grand Prix, then was down a bit on the list here in the freestyle, so he must have had some trouble with the footing also.
Oh, well, it was so unfortunate. Right where he was to put his pirouette, was this enormous hole, and the horse would have nothing to do with it. Yeah. Absolutely nothing to do with it. He would do part of it okay, and then he'd come to that puddle and he'd almost back up and run around, It was very unfortunate where his movements were placed were right in puddles everywhere. So it was... It
sounds like they're going to have to do some considering maybe improving the footing there for next time. If they set the next championship up there, we certainly don't want a repeat of this.
Well, I think that was a definite concern, and a lot of riders had put that, that down, that unless that they can get somebody in there to redo the footings, and it can't be the main arena, it's got to be a warm-up arena as well, that it just can't be there, period.
No,
and of course, we are looking at the team preparing for WEG up there, aren't we, Debbie? So all-weather footing has got to be, a plus. The timing's perfect for it if they can get the sponsorship, because that's not a cheap exercise,
correct.
Is it?
And from what I understand, Sue Blinks and I think Ken Braddock had some contacts with somebody in Footings Unlimited, and I do believe they showed up on Saturday and saw the footing and saw what shape it is in, and I only heard through the grapevine that there is word that he might donate the main arena and do it all in the all-weather footing like they have in, I believe it's Ellington.
Fantastic.
That would be wonderful. I hope they film this, the before and after shot, because that would be a great commercial for the footing company.
Oh, well, that's what I think they're probably thinking for sure. And then it's a matter of trying to get enough funding to get that at least one of those upper rings done.
Well, terrific. So, having said all that and everybody survived, hopefully the horses survived soundly too, what did we learn from Debbie that's affecting, our preparation now for this season and for next year?
Well, I know for the West Coast that there are big concerns about, the CDIWs, that we're not really being able to get in managers that are wanting to do that, because there's just not enough of us that play in that area that it warrants putting all that extra money. That's a big problem for us, as well as footing. And I just think it's just really unfortunate that the sport just doesn't seem to be taking off in a direction where we have people that still want to support it in a big way. And I know economy is not helping in any way, shape, or form, that's for sure.
So, what do you think is going to happen then after Gladstone? And I know riders will go back to sort of their summer locations and have some local shows and until the season starts in Wellington. Of course, that's not until, November now is when they start down there, right?
Right. There is talk. I think there are quite a few people that do plan on going to Europe. I think, like Adrian and I are probably going to try to go end of October, November, and maybe through the first part of December, and get in some shows. But again, then you're still sitting quite a few months here, not
in the heat.
Anything. Yeah. I mean, it's never an ideal situation, I think, for anyone over here in the United States. I don't think it's just so spread out, and we just don't have that, constant little show around the corner that could be just a good schooling show, It seems like everything we go to has to be an important one, and that isn't always advantageous.
No, it's not. Then you don't get a chance to experiment a little or try new things, different kinds of warm-up. It's always something big that you have a lot of pressure to put together the best you can. And, yeah, it's not the best situation. The U.S. is so big, and it's always a problem. There's nothing we can really do about that. But
Well, we're just about running out of time here, Debbie. But before we go, we want to mention the arranged marriage that we heard about. Tell us about that.
We have a heartbeat on a Damsey foal that's in a surrogate mare that seems to be doing very well. We're almost at the 45-day situation, and then we just collected a little Kingston embryo, and that one is also one I'm very excited about. I'm trying not to get too excited till they actually get a heart, but it was a grade 1 embryo, and so that is the highest quality they can get. But it was just plain exciting to think that this 18-year-old girl, never been bred, nothing in her life, still was fertile. I was so excited.
Well, you'll be calling her Mama, and you'll be a mama soon then, or grandmama.
I know. I'll be a grandma.
That's very exciting. So how will that unfold then? Because, we're going to start a lot of listener interest with this. I'd have just to follow the whole pregnancy and the whole thing, the whole story, Debbie. So what happens? Where will the mare be?
Well, Brentina is coming home with 2 horses from Gladstone from California. So she'll be home probably on Friday. And then the surrogate mares are going to stay in California because they're at a breeding farm that they live at. They have pasture. And I just think it's not a wise decision for us to bring them here to Idaho. But by the time they're ready to foal, we will be down in California. So I will definitely try to be a part of that process and see them as they come out. So
very exciting.
And I'm going to, when I do get pictures of surrogate mares, and I don't know if they're Clydesdales or Mustangs or whatever, but I'll have to get you pictures so that you can put that all over for the world to see who's carrying Brentina's baby.
Well,
People will definitely want to see that.
So it should be a fun story to follow.
Oh, I think for sure. We will be following the program with you, Debbie. And we want to thank you for spending time with us today. That's been fantastic to hear about Gladstone and your observations. So come back again anytime and join us on the Dressage Radio Show, and be sure to send us pictures of the impending foal.
I will do that for sure.
All right. Thanks so much, Debbie.
All right. Bye to you, Heather. Good luck.
Good luck to you, Debbie, and with the foals, and hope to talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. All right, well, that was great to hear from Debbie. Heather, it sounds like that was an action-packed weekend, but not with making the kind of headlines that we'd hope. It was more about the weather than the competition, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. I hope that they do come through with that sponsor on getting the footing fixed. It's time. It's a great facility, but, without footing, you have a tough time, with such elite horses that really need elite footing, and I hope they get that worked out.
All right. Well, before we get to your training tip of the week, we're going to break now for another short commercial.
Not every horse needs a supplement, and selecting the right supplement for your dressage horse can be a science. Kentucky Performance Products simplifies your search. You can trust Kentucky Performance Products to give you the most value for your money, and they offer supplements designed to target specific problems, and they're made with high-quality ingredients included at effective levels. Each product is backed by sound research and a money-back satisfaction guarantee. This month, might we recommend, as it's getting very hot out there, Summer Games electrolytes. They were developed specifically for use at the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta. Formulated to replace key electrolytes and trace minerals at the proper ratio, Summer Games increases your horse's tolerance to exercise and speeds recovery time. For horses on the go, use Summer Games Plus Paste. The revolutionary electrolyte paste contains Nalox equine antacid. The dual-action electrolyte offers horses the extra benefit of buffering the stomach at stressful times. Learn more about Summer Games electrolytes and all the products at kppusa.com. That's Kentucky Performance Products at kppusa.com.
All right, Heather. Well, back to your training tip of the week. What do you have for us this time?
Just a quick tip about how to think about balance in your horse, and just to realize that, I mean, one of the main goals in dressage training, of course, is the balance and moving it further and further back in the horse's body so that the forehand is free and lifted and the horse takes the weight on behind. In any horse, starting out as a green, untrained horse is going to tend to have more balance on the forehand than we would like. And when you're teaching a horse to make a new balance and you're moving their center of gravity further and further back, I think it's just a good idea to keep in mind that it's easier for them to learn that in smaller steps first before you take bigger steps with a lot of power and really covering a lot of ground. I just tend to see a lot of riders sort of go for a lot of power and in a way that they might be trying to get the hind legs really engaged or under or going. And I think you run into problems pretty quickly, especially if the horse is one that has a little tougher time learning how to move his or her balance more back. Train it in small steps first, and get the horse knowing what it is that you're after, knowing how to change their balance, how to take on more weight behind before you make the steps bigger and bigger. It's kind of like if you're going to step out on an ice rink and you were a professional ice skater and you were sort of out there for the first time, you would really try to kind of keep your skates together and keep your strides pretty small before you got the balance to be able to really skate quite fast and do great things with it. So kind of an analogy you can think of when you think about if your horse is having an easy time at it, or they're struggling, need a little more time, try it in small steps before you go in big steps. So something that I do, and just wanted to pass that as my training tip of the week.
Well, thank you, Heather. It's like learning to dance, isn't it? Ice skate was a good analogy. We always tend to make big strides, and when really the smaller ones are so much easier, and that's all that's necessary.
It is, especially when balance is the issue. Just take the little ones, get to know the ice, get to know the balance, and then start testing it with more powers.
All right. Well, thank you, Heather. We should mention the other shows on the network here, on Horse Radio Network. We have 4 shows, and they are, Heather?
Well, there are 4 great shows, starting with the Eventing Radio Show, hosted by Glenn Leake and Chris Stafford at eventingradio.com. And be sure to check out the Stable Scoop. That's also hosted by Glenn Leake and Helena B. at stablescoop.com. And a great show to check out also is the 2010 radio show hosted by Glenn the Geek and Samantha Clark at 2010radioshow.com. And be sure to listen to the Dressage Radio Show presented by Equestrian Life next week as we catch up with Lowell Boomer. And we'll also hear from Reese Koffler about her Gladstone debut. She was just at Gladstone last weekend. And also just to see what's been up with her lately and what she's focusing on now now that the championships are over. So we're looking forward to hearing from her.
Great. Well, thank you, Heather. And you can also follow us in our show notes at dressageradio.com. You can send us your feedback. Leave a voicemail at 270-803 0025. That number is also available on our website. You can email Heather or myself at heather@horseradionetwork.com or chris@horseradionetwork.com. We want to hear from you. We want you to have your say on the show with our It's Your Call segment. Anything that's on your mind that's topical in the world of dressage. So leave a voicemail and your name, and we will be sure to include you in the show. And remember, the Dressage Radio Show also has a fan page on Facebook. There's a link to that page on our website. And you can follow us on Twitter. Horse Radio is the name to follow on Twitter. And we're very active on Twitter, I must say, as you are too, Heather. And I try to be a little bit, but, we're leading the way there and, giving you all kinds of tidbits and news and things to follow. And we also let you know when the new episodes are posted. So be sure to follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. And remember to visit our social community at equestrianlife.com. Equestrianlife.com, of course, are our presenting sponsors on the show. And they have a wonderful community there for the equestrian world on equestrianlife.com. Heather's got a blog, of course, you can read on her website at heatherblitz.info. Are you keeping that up, Heather?
No, I haven't done anything with it for a little while. I'll try.
All right. Well, if I mention it on the show every week, it might just, guilt you into...
Okay, I'm writing a note to myself right now.
There you go. All right. Well, we'd like to thank our sponsors again, Equestrian Life. They can be found at equestrianlife.com, and Kentucky Performance Products. They do a wonderful job for us on the Horse Radio Network, so our thanks to Karen there over at Karen Isberg at Kentucky Performance Products. They can be found at kppusa.com. Well, what's in store for you this week now, Heather?
Well, I think a little bit more of enjoying the weather for me. And, I've got some guests coming in, so I'm going to have fun showing people around my little town here. And what about with you, Chris?
Oh, terrific. Well, there's always something happening in the horse parks. I'm always over there. I've got plenty going on work-wise, and we have the eventing radio show, too. We had some gremlins trying to record the show this week, so... We've still got the eventing radio show to do, so I hope you'll check us out over there too. Lots going on here in Kentucky, and even though it's summer, it's still plenty to keep us busy. So until we meet again next week, Heather.
Yeah, good luck and mind your riding.